The coffee mug shattered against the wall 2 inches from my head. I stood there in the doorway of Marin Cole's office, frozen, watching dark liquid drip down the white paint like blood in a crime scene. My portfolio case slipped from my fingers and hit the floor with a thud that echoed way too loud in the sudden silence. "Get out," she said. Her voice was quiet, deadly quiet. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up to 3 months earlier, to the day I walked into Henderson Marketing in downtown Chicago and made the biggest mistake of my professional life. I was 23. Freshly graduated and desperate. My student loan payments were stacking up like a bad game of Jenga, and I'd been living on my friend Casey's couch for 2 months. When the graphic designer position opened up at Henderson, I applied within 15 minutes. When they called me in for an interview, I wore the only suit I owned and prayed the coffee stain on the sleeve wasn't visible. The interview went fine. Standard questions, portfolio review, the usual corporate handshake routine. I got the job. Started the following Monday. That's when I met her. Marin Cole was sitting in the break room when I walked in on my first day, looking for the coffee maker that Casey swore every office had. She was alone at one of those tall tables, laptop open, fingers flying across the keyboard like she was racing against time itself. Dark auburn hair pulled back in a messy bun, white button-up with the sleeves rolled to her elbows, and this intense focus that made the air around her feel charged. I almost backed out of the room. Something about her presence made me feel like I was interrupting something important, even though she hadn't looked up. "Coffee's broken," she said, without stopping her typing. "Has been for 3 days. Maintenance keeps saying they'll fix it." "Oh." I stood there like an idiot, holding my empty mug. "Thanks. There's a place downstairs, corner of Wells and Madison, blue awning. Tell them you work upstairs. They'll give you the office discount." Finally, she looked up, green eyes, sharp and assessing. She studied me for maybe 3 seconds, and I felt like she'd read my entire life story in that glance. Saw the cheap suit, the desperation, the fact that I'd rehearsed my introduction 17 times in the elevator. "You're the new designer," she said. Not a question. "Yeah, I know who you are. Your desk is in the east corner. Kyle will show you." She went back to her laptop. Conversation over. I found out later that Marin was the senior project manager, that she'd been with Henderson for 6 years, and that she was basically the reason half their biggest clients stayed with the company. She was 31, never took vacation days, and had a reputation for being brilliant and absolutely impossible to work with. "She's burned through 4 assistants in 2 years, my cubicle neighbor Josh told me during my first week. Last one quit mid-project, just walked out during a client meeting." "Why?" Josh shrugged. "Marin doesn't do hand-holding. She expects you to read her mind, anticipate problems before they happen, and work at her pace, which is, inhuman." I should have paid more attention to that warning. For the first month, I barely saw her. But I worked on small projects, did revision after revision of logo concepts, learned the company systems. Marin existed in my peripheral vision, always moving, always 3 steps ahead of everyone else. I'd see her in meetings through the glass walls, watch her pace while on phone calls, notice how she was always the last one to leave at night. I started staying late too, not because I had to, but because I needed the quiet to focus. The office after 6 was a different place. No phones ringing, no random conversations, just the hum of computers and the distant sound of traffic from the street below. That's when I started noticing things about Marin. She had this habit of pulling her hair out of its bun when she was thinking, letting it fall around her shoulders while she stared at her screen. She'd twist a strand around her finger, bite her bottom lip, then suddenly type in these explosive bursts like the solution had downloaded directly into her brain. She drank tea, not coffee. Always the same kind, something that smelled like bergamot and made the whole office smell like a garden when she walked past. And she was always cold. Even in June, she kept this gray cardigan draped over her chair and would pull it on whenever she sat down to work. I told myself I was just observing my coworkers, learning the office dynamics. I told myself I wasn't specifically watching her. I was lying to myself. The thing is, Marin was magnetic in this completely unexpected way. She wasn't friendly or warm or any of the things you'd typically find attractive in an office setting. She was intense and demanding, and she scared most people. But there was something about the way she approached work, this pure dedication and competence, that I couldn't look away from. Plus, okay, she was beautiful. In that understated way that sneaks up on you. You wouldn't notice it at first, but then you'd catch her smiling at something on her screen, or see her push her hair behind her ear while reading, and suddenly you'd realize you'd been staring for way too long. Not that it mattered. Marin Cole was so far out of my league, we weren't even playing the same sport. She was a senior manager. I was a junior designer. She was sophisticated and established. I was still figuring out how to pack a lunch that didn't fall apart by noon. And then came the Riverside Hotel's pitch. It was early August, humid and miserable outside. The firm had been competing for the Riverside account for months, and it finally came down to Henderson and one other agency. Final pitch was in 2 weeks. If we landed it, it would be the biggest account the company had ever handled. Marin was leading the pitch team. I wasn't on it, obviously, but the whole office was buzzing with the energy of it. You could feel the pressure building, see it in the way people moved through the halls. 3 days before the presentation, Tyler, the senior designer on Marin's team, got rushed to the hospital with appendicitis. Emergency surgery. Out for minimum 2 weeks. I was at my desk, headphones on, working on a completely unrelated brochure design, when I felt someone standing behind me. I turned around and nearly fell out of my chair. Marin was there, arms crossed, studying my screen. "You're good with animation, right?" she asked. No preamble, no greeting. Yeah. I did a lot of motion graphics in school. Great. You're on the Riverside pitch. We need to redo the entire presentation deck. All the animations are wrong. Tyler's style doesn't match the client aesthetic, and I didn't catch it until now. My brain was trying to process multiple things at once. I was being pulled onto the biggest project in the company by Marin Cole, who apparently knew what work I'd done in school. "When do you need it by?" I asked. "Thursday." Today was Monday. It was already 4 in the afternoon. "Thursday," I repeated. "Is that a problem?" Her eyes narrowed slightly. No problem." "Good. Conference room 3. 5 minutes." She walked away before I could respond. I sat there for a moment, my hands shaking slightly. Then I saved my work, grabbed my laptop, and headed to conference room 3. But the next 72 hours were the most intense of my life. Marin didn't sleep, so neither did I. We worked through the night Monday, went home at 6 Tuesday morning to shower and change, then came right back. The presentation had to be perfect. Not good, not great. Perfect. And working with Marin was like being caught in a hurricane. She was exacting, specific, demanding. But she was also brilliant. She'd look at something I'd spent 3 hours on and immediately see what was wrong, what needed to change, how to make it better. And she'd explain it in a way that made sense, that made me want to fix it and improve it. We barely spoke about anything that wasn't work. But there was this rhythm we fell into, this unspoken communication. She'd pull up a slide, and I'd already know what she was going to say. I'd finish an animation, and she'd nod once, which I learned was high praise. Wednesday night turned into Thursday morning. We were both exhausted, running on fumes and whatever energy drinks Josh kept bringing us. My eyes burned from staring at the screen. My back ached from hunching over my laptop for days. Around 3 a.m, Maren stood up and stretched. I heard her spine crack from across the table. Take a break," she said. 10 minutes. We walked to the break room in silence. She heated up water for tea. I splashed cold water on my face in the bathroom. When I came back, she was standing by the window, looking out at Chicago's skyline. The city looked different at this hour, quieter, softer. "You're doing good work," she said, without turning around. Those 4 words hit me harder than they should have. I'd been waiting for approval from her without even realizing it. "Thanks," I managed. She turned, leaned against the window. "Tyler's good, but he doesn't think about narrative flow. You do. These animations aren't just pretty, they're telling the story. That's the goal, right? That's always the goal. Most designers forget that." She took a sip of her tea. "Why'd you come to Henderson? Well, you could be doing bigger things. Needed a job, needed money. Student loans aren't going to pay themselves." "Fair enough." She studied me over the rim of her mug. "But you won't stay. You're too good for this place. I like it here," I said. And I meant it. Or at least, I liked being in this break room at 3 a.m. with her. Something shifted in her expression, but before I could read it, she pushed off from the window. "Break's over. Let's finish this." We presented to Riverside Hotels at 2 that afternoon. I sat in the back of the room while Maren led the pitch, watching our animations play on the big screen, seeing the client nod and lean forward and take notes. Maren was flawless, confident, prepared, commanding. We won the account. The office erupted when the call came through. People were cheering, hugging. Yet someone opened champagne they'd apparently been hiding. Maren shook hands with the partners, accepted congratulations with her usual reserved grace. And then, in all the chaos and celebration, I did the stupidest thing I've ever done. I made a joke. We were back in conference room 3, breaking down the presentation setup. Just the 2 of us. Everyone else was still celebrating in the main office. "That was incredible," I said. "You're incredible." She looked up from coiling the presentation cable. "It was a team effort." "Please, you carried that whole pitch. I just made things move pretty. Don't diminish your work." She stood, tossed the cable onto the table. "You pulled off in 3 days what should have taken 2 weeks. That's not nothing." We were standing close, closer than we'd been before, and I could smell her tea and something else scent, see the exhaustion in her eyes that matched my own. And my brain, running on no sleep and too much adrenaline, decided this was the perfect moment to be clever. "You know," I said, grinning like an idiot, "working with you is so intense, I bet nobody could last a week actually living with you." The words were out before I could stop them. I'd meant it as a compliment, sort of. Like, your energy is so powerful, your standards are so high. It was supposed to be playful. The look on her face told me I'd miscalculated. Badly. "Excuse me." Her voice went cold. Arctic cold. "I just meant, you're really focused and driven and you think I'm difficult." Not a question. A statement. "No, that's not. You think I'm some uptight workaholic who's impossible to be around." She took a step back. "Oh, that's what everyone thinks, right? That I'm too much, too demanding, too... Maren, I didn't mean it like that. Get out." "What?" "Get out of this room. Now." I left. What else could I do? I went home that night replaying the conversation over and over, trying to figure out how I'd screwed it up so badly. By Friday morning, I'd convinced myself it would blow over. We'd been exhausted. Emotions were high. She'd forget about it. I was wrong. Maren stopped speaking to me. Completely. She'd walk past my desk like I didn't exist. In meetings, she'd address everyone except me. When I sent her files to review, I'd get one-word email responses. Fine. Approved. Whatever. It went on for 2 weeks. 2 miserable weeks of being frozen out by the one person whose opinion I actually cared about. And then, one Monday morning, I walked into her office to drop off some prints. That's when she threw the coffee mug at my head. I stood there, dripping coffee, staring at her across the desk. "I'm sorry," I said. My voice came out steadier than I felt. About the joke. It was stupid and thoughtless, and I've regretted it every single day since. You think apologizing fixes it? She stood up. You think saying sorry makes it okay, that you reduced me to some stereotype? The ice queen, the workaholic, the woman who's married to her job because clearly there's something wrong with her? That's not what I think. Then what do you think? She moved around the desk. Because from where I'm standing, you're just another person who looked at me and saw exactly what everyone else sees. Someone who's too much trouble, too high maintenance. I think you're the most compelling person I've ever met, I said. She stopped. I think you're brilliant and dedicated, and you don't compromise on quality because why should you? I think you scare people because you're better than them, and they know it. And I think that joke was my dumb way of saying I'm in awe of you, and I have no idea how to act around you because you make me nervous in a way I've never been nervous before. The silence stretched between us. I could hear my own heartbeat, feel coffee still dripping from my hair onto my collar. "You're nervous around me," she said slowly. "Terrified," I admitted. "Why?" This was it. The moment where I could backtrack, play it safe, pretend I meant something professional and appropriate. Instead, I told the truth. "What? Because I think about you constantly, and it's completely inappropriate, and I know it, and I can't stop." Maren stared at me. I watched several emotions flicker across her face too fast to name. Then she said, "You won't last a week living with me." My brain short-circuited. "What?" "That's what you said, right? That nobody could last a week living with me." She crossed her arms. "Prove it. Move in. 1 week. You make it the full 7 days, I'll forgive the joke, and we go back to normal. You tap out early, you quit Henderson, and find a new job." "That's insane." "Those are the terms." Her eyes challenged me. "Unless you want to keep working here while I pretend you don't exist. That's the alternative." My mouth moved before my brain could catch up. "I'm not leaving unless you fire me." Something flickered in her expression. Surprise, maybe, or interest. "Fine," she said. "Saturday, 9 a.m. I'll text you the address." She walked back to her desk, sat down, and picked up her phone like I wasn't there. "Close the door on your way out. You're dripping on my floor." I left her office, went straight to the bathroom, and stared at my coffee-soaked reflection in the mirror. What the hell had I just agreed to? Saturday morning came too fast. I stood outside Maren's building in Lincoln Park at 8:55, holding a duffel bag and seriously reconsidering every life choice that had led me here. The building was nice, really nice. The kind of place with a doorman and actual marble in the lobby. I gave my name, got buzzed up to the 8th floor, and stood outside apartment 804 trying to slow my racing heart. Maren opened the door before I could knock. "You're early," she said. "Didn't want to be late." She stepped aside to let me in. The apartment was exactly what I'd expected, and nothing like it at the same time. Clean lines, minimal furniture, but warmer than I'd imagined. Books everywhere, plants on every windowsill, and one entire wall covered in photographs from what looked like a dozen different countries. "Guest rooms down the hall," she said, already walking away. "Second door on the left. Bathrooms shared. Don't touch my stuff in the shower." I followed her with my bag, found the guest room. It was small but comfortable. A bed, a desk, and a window overlooking the street. When I came back out, Marin was in the kitchen making tea. "Rules," she said without preamble. "I wake up at 5:30. I go for a run. I don't talk before my first cup of tea. I work from home most mornings. I need quiet. Can you handle that?" "Yes." "I meal prep on Sundays. I don't cook during the week. If you want dinner, you're on your own, or you eat what I've already made. I don't do takeout every night." "Okay. And this doesn't change anything at work. We're still professional. This is separate." "Understood." She studied me over her mug. "Why'd you really agree to this? Because I'm an idiot," I thought. "Because you looked at me like I'd hurt you, and I'd do anything to take it back. Because the idea of you hating me is worse than any awkward living situation." "Well, because I meant what I said," I answered. "I'm not leaving unless you fire me." Something softened in her face, just for a second. Then it was gone. "We'll see if you still mean that by Wednesday." The first day was weird, but manageable. Marin disappeared into her home office after breakfast. I tried to stay out of her way, read a book in the living room, made myself scarce. By evening, we'd barely spoken 10 words to each other. Day 2 was harder. I woke up to the sound of her leaving for her run, then couldn't fall back asleep. When she came back, she found me making coffee in the kitchen. "You're up early," she said, slightly breathless, hair damp with sweat. "Couldn't sleep." She grabbed a water bottle from the fridge. We stood there in the early morning quiet. And for the first time since I'd moved in, it didn't feel hostile, just quiet. "I'm making eggs," she said suddenly. "You want some?" "You don't have to. I'm already cooking. Yes or no?" "Yes, please." We ate breakfast together at her small dining table. She asked me about my design background, where I went to school, what got me into graphics. Real questions, like she actually wanted to know. I asked her about the photographs on the wall. She told me about teaching English in Thailand after college, backpacking through South America, spending 6 months in Morocco. Her whole face changed when she talked about traveling. The walls came down. "Why'd you stop?" I asked. "Got the job at Henderson. Decided to be responsible." She pushed her eggs around her plate. "Sometimes I regret it." "You could travel again?" "Maybe." She looked at me. "You think I'm boring now, don't you? Or the uptight project manager who gave up adventure for spreadsheets? I think you're terrifying and fascinating, and I can't figure you out," I said honestly. Her expression shifted. "Good. I'd hate to be predictable." Day 3, something changed. Marin came home from the office frustrated about a client who kept changing requirements. She ranted for 20 minutes while I listened from the couch. Then she stopped mid-sentence. "Sorry, you don't need to hear this." "I don't mind." "You're just saying that." "I'm really not." I set down my book. "Tell me about the client." She did, and then we brainstormed solutions. And suddenly, it was midnight, and we were both exhausted, and she was smiling. Actually smiling. "You're good at this," she said. "At what?" "Listening. Not trying to fix everything. I'm just being here." My heart did something complicated in my chest. "Anytime." Day 4, I cooked dinner. Nothing fancy, just pasta and salad. But Marin looked surprised when she came out of her office and saw the table set. "What's this?" Figured I should contribute something besides awkward conversation. She laughed. Actually laughed. The sound hit me like a physical thing. We ate dinner together, talked about everything and nothing. She told me about growing up in Michigan, her parents' divorce, her sister who lived in Seattle. I told her about my chaotic family, my 3 younger brothers, my mom who called every Sunday without fail. Your family sounds loud, she said. Deafening. Yours? Quiet. Too quiet sometimes. She twirled pasta on her fork. I think that's why I work so much. Silence feels empty now. I wanted to tell her that she didn't have to be alone, that silence could be comfortable if you shared it with the right person. But I didn't. Not yet. Day 5. Marin didn't go to her office. She worked from the couch instead, laptop balanced on her knees, and I worked at the dining table. We existed in the same space for hours without speaking, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was easy. Around 3, she closed her laptop and looked at me. I need to tell you something. My stomach dropped. Okay. I don't actually think you'll quit. I knew that when I made the bet. She tucked her legs under her. I just wanted you here, in my space, and I didn't know how else to make that happen without it being weird. It's pretty weird anyway, I said carefully. I know. She bit her lip. But I like having you here. Oh, and that scares me. Why? Because people leave eventually. They get tired of me, of my intensity, of the way I need things to be. And I thought if I pushed you away first, it would hurt less when you figured that out. I stood up, walked over to the couch, sat down next to her, close enough to feel the warmth of her. What if I don't get tired? I asked quietly. Everyone does. Not everyone. Not me. She looked at me with those sharp green eyes, and I saw fear there. Real, raw fear. I'm a lot, she whispered. I know. I mean it. I'm difficult and demanding, and I have walls the size of... I kissed her. It was soft and tentative, and she froze for half a second before kissing me back. Her hand came up to my face, fingers threading through my hair, and the world narrowed to just this. Just us. When we pulled apart, she was breathing hard. This is a terrible idea, she said. Probably. We work together. I know. And you're still technically my employee for 2 more days. Want me to leave? She grabbed my shirt, pulled me back. Don't you dare. Day 6. I woke up in Marin's bed instead of the guest room, her arm draped across my waist, morning light filtering through the curtains. For a minute I just lay there, afraid to move, afraid this was some elaborate dream my sleep-deprived brain had constructed. Then she stirred, pressed closer, mumbled something unintelligible into my shoulder. Definitely real. What time is it? She asked, voice rough with sleep. 6:30. We're late. For what? My run. Our run now, apparently. She lifted her head, squinted at me. You're coming with me. I didn't agree to that. You kissed me. But you're stuck with all of it now. That includes 5 a.m. wake-ups and 10-mile runs. But she was smiling when she said it, soft and unguarded, in a way I'd never seen at the office. We didn't run 10 miles. We barely made it 3 before we were both laughing too hard, my stamina completely shot, and her competitive nature warring with the fact that she didn't actually want to leave me behind. You're terrible at this, she said, jogging in place while I bent over trying to catch my breath. I'm a designer, not an athlete. Excuses. But she came back, pressed a quick kiss to my temple. Come on, I'll buy you breakfast. We ended up at a diner 2 blocks from her apartment, the kind of place with cracked vinyl booths and coffee that could strip paint. Marin ordered egg whites and fruit. I got pancakes and bacon. How are you so healthy? I asked, stealing one of her strawberries. Discipline. Try it sometime. Pass. She kicked me under the table, but she was grinning. This version of Marin, relaxed and teasing and present, was addictive. I wanted to bottle this feeling, keep it forever. So what happens tomorrow? I asked. When the week is officially over? Her smile faltered. I don't know. What do you want to happen? Honestly, I want to stay. Not just because I won some stupid bet, but because this week has been the best week I've had in years. Yet you're the best thing that's happened to me in years. She looked down at her plate. We can't tell work. Not yet. It's complicated with me being senior staff and you being... I get it. We keep it quiet for now. You're okay with that? I reached across the table, laced my fingers through hers. Marin, I just spent a week proving I could live with you. I'm in this, however it needs to look. Even if it means separate desks and professional emails, and pretending we're not. She waved her free hand vaguely. Together? I was going to say disgustingly happy, but sure. Together. Especially if it means that. Because when we're not at work, I get you. The real you. And that's worth any amount of workplace professionalism. She squeezed my hand. You're kind of perfect. You know that? Tell me that again when I leave wet towels on the bathroom floor. Oh, God. Do you do that? I'm rescinding everything. Deal's off. We spent the rest of the day in her apartment, wrapped up in each other, and the kind of easy intimacy that felt like we'd been doing this for years instead of days. She showed me her favorite books. I showed her my terrible high school art portfolio. We ordered pizza even though it violated her meal prep rules, and she didn't even complain about it. That night, we stood on her balcony watching the city lights flicker on, one by one. I was mean to you, she said quietly. After the joke, I froze you out and threw a mug at your head and forced you into this insane living arrangement. The mug missed. That's not the point. She turned to face me. I was hurt, and I lashed out. And I'm sorry. You know what? I'm not. When she looked confused, I continued. If you hadn't thrown that mug, if you hadn't given me this challenge, we wouldn't be here. I would have kept watching you from across the office. You would have kept pretending I didn't exist, and we both would have missed this. So you're saying my terrible coping mechanisms brought us together. I'm saying maybe it all happened exactly how it needed to. She kissed me then, deep and certain, and I tasted tea and pizza and possibility. Day 7 arrived too fast and too slow all at once. My official week was up. I packed my duffel bag that morning, making a show of it while Marin watched from the doorway. You know you can leave that here, right? She said. Most of it anyway, if you want. Is that your way of asking me to actually move in, like, ooh, for real? Maybe. Is that your way of saying yes? I dropped the bag, crossed the room, pulled her close. I already told you, I'm not leaving unless you fire me. What if I never fire you? Then I guess you're stuck with me. I can live with that. She wrapped her arms around my neck. Fair warning, though, I'm still going to be intense and demanding, and occasionally throw things when I'm frustrated. And I'm still going to be nervous around you and leave my stuff everywhere, and probably annoy you at least twice a day. Sounds perfect. Monday morning at Henderson was surreal. Walking into the office together, but separately, keeping careful distance in the elevator, acting like nothing had changed when everything had changed. Marin went to her office. I went to my desk. And to anyone watching, we were just colleagues who happened to arrive at the same time. But when I checked my email an hour later, there was a message from her. Subject line, Conference Room 3, noon. I showed up at exactly 12. She was already there. Door closed. Blinds drawn. Is this about work? I asked. No. She crossed the room, kissed me hard against the closed door. I just needed to do that before I lost my mind. 8 hours of pretending I don't know what you look like when you first wake up is torture. We're going to be terrible at this. Probably, but we'll figure it out. She stepped back, straightened my collar. Now get out. We have actual work to do. Yes, ma'am. She rolled her eyes, but I caught her smile before I left. That evening, I went back to what was now officially our apartment. I found Marin in the kitchen, meal prepping for the week ahead, hair piled on top of her head, that gray cardigan wrapped around her shoulders. "Welcome home," she said, without looking up. Home. The word settled into my chest, warm and right. I walked up behind her, wrapped my arms around her waist, pressed a kiss to her shoulder. So I lasted the week. You did, against all odds. Think I can last another week? Doubtful. You're already leaving your shoes in the middle of the floor. What about a month? Now you're pushing it. A year. She turned in my arms, eyes bright with something that looked like hope. Ask me again in a year. Deal. But just so we're clear, I'm planning on a lot more than that. Good, she said softly, because so am I. We stood there in her kitchen, our kitchen, and surrounded by meal prep containers and the smell of bergamot tea. And I thought about that stupid joke that had started everything. About coffee mugs and impossible challenges, and the terrifying leap of admitting you want something you're not sure you deserve. Marin Cole was intense and demanding, and brilliant, and complicated. She was early morning runs and quiet work sessions, and fierce protectiveness disguised as high standards. She was everything I'd never known I needed, and everything I'd been searching for without realizing it. And somehow, impossibly, she was mine. I love you, I said. The words came out easy, natural, like they'd been waiting there all along. She smiled, really smiled, the kind that lit up her whole face. I know. I love you too. Even though you can't run 3 miles without dying. Especially because of that? Especially because of that. Outside, Chicago hummed with evening traffic and